everyone. Welcome to the Legendarium Podcast Green Team Patreon edition. For our more rebellious Fire Nation spin on what the Red and Blue team normally provides. This is Horizon Brave, and I'm joined at the top by a few of our other Patreon members. You two can join Patreon. And I'm joined by Kip, HurinFan, and LittleRedBook. LRB for short, which I'll be referring to her by the acronym because I'm not saying LittleRedBook the whole time. Today we are talking about Avatar Season 1 of The Last Airbender, and we're going to try to contain this to Season 1 as much as possible. We'll be doing later on Season 2 and Season 3 later on, so we can try to frame this just in the context of Season 1. And that will come into play later on. I think for my part, most of all. So thanks for coming, guys. This is something that sort of, well, I think we all just started watching it. I think at the same time, we all just said, I think, Kip, I think you're the one who, I think you're the only one who watched it previously, correct?
No, I've watched.
Am I?
No, because I've watched parts of it because I don't think I've ever sat down and watched it like in a straight line, but like my kids watched it, and so I've seen a bunch of different episodes, but probably not all in order.
I've watched it like 5 times, and I own them on Blu-ray.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
I was gonna say you're the newbie, Horizon.
Okay. So let's flip that then. So literally flip what I said into the complete opposite. Then I'm the only one who watched it for the first time.
That's why he's here.
Everyone else here are the Avatar experts here. So. In that case,
I would not call myself an expert, but okay.
Well, compared to me, this is the first time watching it. I've actually watched Season 1 once completely now, and then just right before we recorded, I did a sort of a spot check just to go through the episodes and make sure I'm accurate in my findings. So I just want to start off with like sort of like a rundown, just for all of us, how you guys sort of found out about the series, and when was I think. LRB, I think you already sort of mentioned it, but when did you guys get introduced to Avatar, and what was your first impression of it? Just a high level view, high level, very general. What was your first take on the series when you first watched it? Start with you, Kip.
So I don't recall exactly where I was when I first watched it. I was a kid, but I'm pretty sure I was in a hotel room in Europe, watching it on my laptop, and I think I was watching the first episode of the second. No, not the first episode. Some early episode of the second season. I think it was The Blind Bandit, and I immediately went back and I watched the entire first season and got myself current on the show.
It pulled you in that quickly, huh?
Yeah.
Huron, what about you?
I first heard about the show from a friend at high school, and he said it's really good, you should watch it, and I was like, it just didn't look like my kind of thing, so I skipped it. It wasn't until several years later in college, when all my friends in college were watching it, that I finally gave it a chance. This was around 2010, 2011.
Succumb to peer pressure.
Yeah.
What about you, LRB?
So like I said, I started it with my kids, and it was just something that they were watching, and I'd walk into the room and I'd find myself sitting down and watching an episode, completely unexpectedly, and I just found it charming and fun, and it was something that I could enjoy with my kids, which for children's programming is precious little. I mean, it's bad out there.
Yeah, it's slim pickings coming to that shows that kind of skirt the line between what adults and kids can enjoy. So
yeah, exactly.
Kind of hard to.
It was like it was about the same time that they were just starting to grow out of Thomas the Tank Engine, which is fine. I mean, it's not terrible.
Hey, Winnie the Pooh is good for all ages.
That's I don't know why we never watched that, because I watched it when I was a kid, but it never came up.
Well, I mean, that's not really. We still have like new. I guess they're still continuing adventures. So I'm not sure if this is even still. I mean, I don't know. It could be. I have no idea.
VHS.
What was that?
I wore through several copies of Winnie the Pooh on VHS.
All right. And I think my story sort of mirrors Huron's involvement of it, where I was introduced to it. Well, I wasn't introduced to it. I just heard about it basically very early in I think in high school. And I was sort of at that phase where I was like too cool to watch anything on Nickelodeon, so I definitely just disregarded it as a complete oh yeah, it's complete kid show. And it wasn't until years later when I got a job at a game store, and one of my friends were showing it to me, and he's like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." So, and I then I sort of maybe took it a little more seriously, but I never still sat down and just gave it a chance until recently. So, which I think a lot of people are doing because now it's like it's on Netflix, and I think it's becoming a bit more of especially current isolation times. I think it sort of picked up steam because it was just dropped on Netflix recently. But all right, so that's it. Just to let everyone know, this series is, and I guess this is just to counteract my initial feelings of season one. This series is sitting at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critic rating, which is pretty impressive. That's saying a lot, and it's at 98% audience rating. So and that's just for season one, which is generally considered the weakest of the three, and is already at 100%. So that's saying a lot. Because I found a lot of things on Rotten Tomatoes are either completely just trashed by mass amounts of people. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Okay, so let's I'm going to actually pause here. I'll play a clip, and we'll get back in a few seconds.
Your Majesty, these juveniles were arrested for vandalism, traveling under false pretenses, and malicious destruction of cabbages.
Off with their heads! One for each head of cabbage!
Silence! Only the king can pass down judgment. What is your judgment, sire?
Throw them a feast.
So let's dig into season one. So overall, what did you guys think about this season? And I guess again, let's probably try to separate it as much as possible from the next two seasons, because it's easy to put them together and then say like the whole series was so great, but just I guess trying to remove that future knowledge, I guess, which is maybe a bit hard to do. Let's see if we just try to judge just season one itself. So starting with myself personally, like I enjoyed it, and I knew that people kept saying that it was going to get better in season 2 and 3. Those are like the highlights, so like the high point rather. So I knew that going in, and when I was watching it, the season to me came off as the pieces were all there for something to be very expanded upon greatly. I just felt that it was sort of undercutting itself with the constant humor that was, and this is obviously aimed at kids, so that's definitely it can't be a criticism because the show is on Nickelodeon, so it's not like trying to hide it that it is a kid show. But I just felt like some of the humor was always going a bit too far, and it sort of undercut a lot of the stories and a few of the episodes where it's like, okay, I'm getting into these characters, they're struggling, they're learning a lot, but then they always have this sort of humor that sort of pervades it and sort of undercuts some of the scenes and the emotional impact that the show could have had. But just going around, so what did you guys think of season one, just in general?
So one of the things that I really noticed this time around, whereas the other two seasons have overarching stories, this is much more episodic.
Right.
There is definitely a driving force, but each episode is very discreet in its story until you get towards the end. Um, I, as far as the humor goes, it's a little bit overdone in episode or in season one, but I just find Sokka, that's his name, right?
Yeah.
I mean, his humor is it's it's like dad humor, only a 15-year-old boy, and I just love him so much. I think he's hilarious. Um, and it probably does undercut the story a little bit in this season, but I think I mean, like I said, I was watching it with my kids. I was like, this is a perfect thing. Like, you can enjoy it with a variety of ages and give it a little grace because of the audience. It's not, yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, no, agreed.
I mean, full spoilers for the series. Not for the series, just for season 1. Just for season 1 finale, full spoilers. Sokka's girlfriend turns into the moon. She
Oh,
dies.
yeah, that's right.
She
I forgot
straight
about
up
that. Oh,
dies.
wow.
That's rough.
Yeah, that was dark. You gotta admire.
Like, yeah. And a lot of the water tribe looked like they were dying.
Well,
No,
that is
it
true.
only
But
looks like
again,
they're dying, though.
but a lot of the water tribe is also those little kids who there's a lot of like bathroom pee humor going on. You know, like all
There
like
is. There
so again, it's like on one
absolutely
hand,
is.
yeah. So like on one hand, you have this this really great story, emotionally impactful. Then you have a bunch of a gaggle of little boys say, I have to pee. It's like it's like I want to like really sink my teeth into this. Take it seriously. But then you have the same on the other hand, the humor of like more like bathroom style humor.
I think
that's real life.
while elements of it were maybe exaggerated a little bit for the young audience, I do think that it was a conscious, intentional, creative decision to actually have humor in these life and death situations, and specifically to have Aang have a very healthy sense of humor as given to him by Monk Gyatso in his early training, and
Right.
specifically from his even earlier youth compared to everyone else. Everyone else in the world grew up essentially in wartime. Aang grew up in a monastery.
Right, and that's one of the things I really like because he grows up so much because when he comes out, he doesn't realize there's a war going on and the world is falling apart. He's like the 12-year-old who ran off from his responsibilities still, or 10. I don't remember how old he is, but
Yeah. He ran away from a war that might be starting,
as opposed to having grown up in it.
Yeah.
And
That's
so I think his humor is very appropriate. I'm sorry, Huron.
That's always actually what attracted me to Aang is his ability to still be a little kid and still be a very playful little kid, yet still have to live with all of the guilt and the problems that like he could have prevented. I mean, there's genocide. So
every time I watch the series, I'm reminded how good a monk Aang actually is, and how well he actually embodies the ideals and values that the monastery tried to teach him, even though he was only 10 years old when he left.
Right.
I have a question though. So we're talking about specifically season 1, right?
Yes.
Yep.
When I'm rewatching season 1, and I think it's hard for me to remember the first time I watched it as well, but when I first started it, I didn't, love it. I thought it was good, but when I rewatch it, episode 3, no, maybe it's episode 4. I think episode 4, the Southern Air Temple.
That's 3.
Yeah, okay. When Aang finds out that all of his people are dead, and then he gets incredibly emotional, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm always moved to tears at that scene, but the first time I don't really remember. So I'm wondering if since I've watched the show so many times and I love Aang so much that I'm more emotionally invested in that episode, or maybe just the first time I wasn't as much because I didn't know him so well.
I think the first time I absolutely had trouble understanding why he went into quite such a large rage, but it didn't take very long. Like, I felt like I understood it more when they went to the other air temples, and like I was able to remember that first moment and go back and see it in a better light, even without rewatching the episode. So it definitely stuck in my mind.
What'd you think, Horizon? This was your first time.
So this episode was it was first of all, let me backtrack and get back to what you guys were saying before I touch on this about the character of Aang. I actually agree. I actually think that Aang's humor and his lightheartedness is to me the counterbalance between Sokka's humor and you know wackiness because like Aang's personality is sort of like a snapshot of when he was basically frozen, and so it's like taking someone at a time. And, well, no, literally is taking someone at a time and putting them into a future war basically where your whole life could be turned upside down. So that like innocence and playfulness he has fits perfectly, and I think they did a good job in balancing that because he's still this very naive kid who now has to instantly, upon waking, deal with something that his whole life is now literally completely wiped out, and the fact that everyone he knows, well, not everyone, we see later some of his people he knew are still alive, but most of the people he knows are gone. The world's completely upside down for him, as opposed to Sokka, who's just a kid who's just he acts like he's still like 8 or 10. But anyway, so I really like the character of Aang and how they brought that personality and that side to him to life, and he definitely has a growth between not only this season but the entire series. And the Southern Air Temple episode was really interesting in the fact that when he basically finds his temple. It is correct me if I'm wrong. This is the episode where he comes back and basically there's so many things that have changed in the temple and everything.
No, the Southern Air Temple is where it's empty and he finds Monk Gyatso's bones.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
Right.
I'm thinking of the Northern Air Temple.
The Northern Air Temple is later on in the season.
Okay. So the Northern is the one I actually liked. I actually responded to that one I think more actually because I that idea of him coming back to a place that's where he grew up at, I believe, or where he was trained at, right? Yes. In the Northern Air Temple. Yeah, and he sees it completely. They've changed around, and
he visited the Northern Air Temple.
He grew up in the Southern.
He grew up in the Southern.
Gotcha.
And he was kind of one of the things that really struck me about the Southern Air Temple one is he was ostracized because he was the Avatar, and they're like, it's not fair that you're better at all these games and you can't play with us. And
right.
Yeah, it wasn't just the responsibility; it was also the isolation.
Right, and I'm sorry, I'm bad with names, guys. The monk that was kind of his mentor,
Gyatso,
was the only person who really took an interest in his emotional health and not just his training. Like all the other monks and all the other, like, you should be training to be the Avatar. And he had this one person in his life who really cared about developing him as a person and not as a symbol. And that scene where he finds the bones, I just choked up so much, and anyway.
Yeah. It was really touching.
Yeah. And then he gets Momo. Woo!
And then he gets Momo.
By the way, I think Momo goes down. I like Appa and everything, but I love the design of Momo. Like, I don't know why. I just love it. I just like that lemur looking, like kind of pigs. Appa is so damn big. Like it's hard to have him as like a total bro to go around. But Momo's so like he's like your size. You like put him in your bag and like carry him around. I would totally just walk around with Momo on my back or something. He might be like Pikachu. Oh, good.
I was going to say, that's one of the things that's really nice about the series. It's geared towards kids and it deals with really terrible things, but at the same time, then you have Momo, and you have Appa, which is a really nice balance that keeps things in perspective for kids.
It does.
I do going back a little. Do you mind if I go back a little?
Oh yeah, no, go for it.
Talking about Sokka's particular brand of humor, I think that
I love him so much.
One of the reasons that it does feel a little discordant is because I think Sokka breaks the fourth wall the most with his humor out of all of the characters.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
For everything has to go wrong in just the perfect way that it's clear that it's a TV plot. Like,
I still love him.
the things that happen to Sokka would happen 1 out of a million times in real life, oftentimes. And sure, it makes for some great comedy, but you're aware that you're watching a TV show and a comedic relief character.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And like he does have his moments, and especially with the episode with the Warriors of Kyoshi.
Yeah, which is the 4th episode, which is some pretty fast character growth.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, and this is what I love and I don't like at the same time, where like you get these moments of character growth. Yeah, like the Education is a great moment for Sokka. For Sokka, and he learns a lesson, but then it doesn't feel. It feels like the writers write something, and this again. I know this is corrected later on in the season. So again, I'm trying to focus my criticism on just on season 1. So. But they'll have like a moment where the character learns something, and that was great. It's very thoughtful. He really grew. But the next episode is it's completely wiped away in this episodic little bubble. And then the next episode, it doesn't seem like that's the same character at like the beginning of the one episode. It doesn't seem like where you picked up from the previous episode.
It doesn't seem like the episodes happened necessarily in order.
Right. Yeah. And this is something that and just to this isn't going to mean much to you guys, but. Anyone listening, this season and a lot of these episodes were directed by, and I found out about this when I was watching, were directed by the same guy who did the Star Wars Rebels TV show. And if you put season 1 of Rebels next to season 1 of Avatar, they are like a spitting image of each other, and how it starts out very childlike, but it's more of a kid show. Everything's very episodic. It's very, not creature of the week, but story of the week, where it's wrapped up. It is not a ton of carryover necessarily, but then once season 2 and 3 hit, then you pick up in these epic, longer format stories, and character decisions carry over. I just found that this guy clearly has a pattern of how he writes things. I found that very interesting.
I'd say something almost similar about Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, actually, yes, right, yeah. Except Deep Space Nine was like 7 seasons, so it took even a bit longer to get there at the end. But where the episodes were then carrying over, the longer arcs. But yeah, so I felt like the Warriors of Kyoshi was a great episode, a great learning experience, but it didn't seem like it lasted, or it didn't feel like it meant anything in the long term until you get to later on with these characters.
Can I go back?
Oh yeah, go
ahead. Did you just call Sokka a comic relief character? Because I don't think that's fair.
At the start, he is.
He is to me, he's very much of a comic relief character. Out of all of them,
he absolutely is.
So, do you not think he is?
He's the straight man. Yep. He's the straight man.
No, he absolutely is a straight man, but I think just to call someone a comic relief character takes away.
I don't think that calling someone a comic relief character devalues someone.
I agree. I'm gonna have to say it's like actors that are comedic actors that want to play drama so that they can be serious, and it's like that's not.
I'm sorry. The amount of times that Sokka's boomerang hits him in his own head is too high to not call him a comic relief character in at least some capacity.
Yeah, the amount of like body humor and sort of pratfall they wrote for him is a bit much. Like they give him I mean, what else would you call his character? I mean, he's. I want to say at least 60% of his lines are written for a comic punchline or some sort of physical body humor.
Maybe I'm just taking umbrage with the comic relief part, because I kind of see that as a pejorative.
No,
I think it often is, but I'm not using it that way, and I don't think it always has to be.
And so I would bring up the episode where he gets beat up by the girls and then he goes and.
Which is episode 4, Kyoshi Warriors. Yep.
Yeah, and they make him dress up like them and all this kind of stuff, and he's complaining about it, but there's this scene where he really humbly presents himself and says, look, I want to learn. And I think that that's a really beautiful moment, because it shows that he's growing, and he's realizing that I might not be. He was supposed to be in charge of his village. His dad kind of left him in charge. You're the man of the house type of thing.
He
And
was a little
moving past that.
teenage kid. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's moving past that. And I actually think that shows him to be a good character, even though he's klutzy and says inappropriate things. And
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that moment that you mentioned is probably one of my favorites because it's again you can tell that they could have easily just written it completely for humor, where he would have stumbled in there and said I'm sorry, and then bumbled and knocked over a vase or something. But
right.
the fact that he had that very humbling moment of bowing down before them, I thought was really 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 cool. I thought it was very well done.
And he does learn from them. He doesn't, it's not just he
Yeah.
gets beat up. He actually learns a lot.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then when they invade the Fire Nation temple so that Aang can get his message from Roku, Sokka is the one who figures out how to trick the fire monks into the fire sages, into opening the door for them.
Also, in the fortune teller, he's the one telling everybody to stop being so stupid.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I alternately love and hate the fortune teller.
Yeah, I agree. I hate that. It's like my second least favorite episode, but I do worship Sokka in that episode.
So we haven't talked
and
about
he's the fastest to figure out Jet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true, isn't he?
I hate that character. I hated that character, by the way. I was so glad. The one time I was actually cheering Sokka on, like, thankfully, because Jet had the problem of the kind of the cliche story of some random outsider being so cool and badass and edgy, and it just rubbed me the wrong way. Where I want him to get his ass kicked by the end of it.
Well,
I mean, it's written like that, right?
Yeah, no, it is, and I was like, so that was my least favorite episode by a million.
Oh, really?
Jet is written as an emotional abuser.
He is, and so Katira. That first of all, I don't think that episode. It just feels like it doesn't belong. But Katira and her.
It felt like it belonged later.
I don't know. I just was like, what does this have to do with anything? But her reaction and his brotherly protection was real, because I've been a 15-year-old girl. And you fall for some stupid shit. I mean, stuff. When you're that age.
You have to censor yourself.
I try. Sorry. And I almost spoiled too earlier. Yeah, so that part felt real, but I was like, why is this here? It's not moving the story along. It's
also, he was literally sweeping her off of her feet into like a treehouse.
I know.
That's pretty romantic.
I would have totally fallen for it.
I love that episode. I think it's really beautiful, and I think the action's really well shown. I think it shows Sokka doing his Sokka stuff, and most of all, I think it shows the realities of war in a way that kids can understand. Because you meet these guys and they're fighting against the baddies, right? But they're not the good guys.
Child extremist soldiers. That's what they are.
Okay, I'll go back and rewatch it.
I like that Avatar didn't shy away from showing us extremist child soldiers.
I was like, he's Robin Hood on steroids. Like that was I was thinking the whole time. He even lives in the forest and he's an archer and.
Yep. No, I mean, there's definitely elements of that.
Well, yeah, but I don't think he actually did. I mean, did he remind me? I don't think he actually did anything to aid anyone else, right?
I mean, no, because no one in Avatar kills anybody.
No.
Well, yeah.
Like people get killed off screen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess, but
pretty much almost no one ever dies.
Zhao kind of dies at the season finale.
Zhao kind of dies, sure.
So let's go around. While we're talking about characters, so who's everyone's from the beginning of the season 1 to the end of season 1, obviously.
Iroh and Iroh.
I think that's pretty popularly. But so everyone's favorite characters. around the room, I guess. I think that's probably going to be the overall opinion. But just to hear everyone say it,
I think Iroh's disqualified from my list.
Yeah,
Why? Why is he disqualified?
Because I'm going to list him for everything if I don't disqualify him.
Yeah, okay. let's remove Iroh and Zuko from the list. Actually, no. In all seriousness,
we can keep Zuko. I don't care about him.
Let's remove those two as the honorary mentions. We know everyone loves them, but so besides Iroh, who is everyone's favorite character here?
Mine would definitely have to be Katara. At the beginning, it was Aang. Katara was pretty. I felt like she was whiny at the beginning, and I didn't really understand her. But definitely halfway through to most of the way through for the first season, especially by the time of the episode The Waterbending Master near the end, Katara was easily my favorite character. Of course, excepting Iroh.
Of course. Like I said, we know. Definitely
there's basically an episode where Katara fights the patriarchy.
What about you here?
At the beginning, probably Aang. By the end, definitely Sokka, for all my previously stated reasons.
Wow, really?
Sokka's really annoying in the first couple episodes for obvious reasons, and Aang's just kind of a goofy kid. But I wasn't the biggest into the first 2 episodes. I think it really grows from episode 3. But by the end, you learn about Sokka from. I don't like the episode, but you learn about him from Fortune Teller. You learn what he goes through in the season finale, what he loses, and I think he's had a lot of character growth from the first episode.
And what about you, LRB?
It's definitely Sokka. All through. I don't.
You guys, I can't be in the same.
I'm sorry. I love him so much. He just. I think partly because I'm an older sibling. Because he's older than, I'm pretty sure, isn't he? Actually, I'm not sure about their birth order. I just
He is older.
Yeah, yep. I relate to the way he relates to the world around him, which maybe says bad things about me. I'm not sure, but I just love him so much. He's all through my 100% favorite character. I like Aang and I like Katara and I like Momo. Momo's a pretty high character up there, but yeah.
Interesting.
I am a little bit surprised that we didn't get someone who said my favorite character is Momo.
I almost
that
did.
happens occasionally.
How about you, Horizon?
I really like Momo, so and like I said, I in trying to keep this just on season 1, I don't like Sokka at all. But by the time season 3 comes, where you see his relationship with his father, when his father does come back again, future spoilers. When he does meet with his father, that really hit me hard. Personal relationship with my father. So I'll give him that pass up front only because I have future knowledge. But besides that, yeah, no, Sokka is low. He's definitely low tier.
Well, I can't help that you're wrong, Horizon.
Okay, yeah, we all can't. Be perfect. So, and I just want to get into
Wait, who was yours then for the first season?
Yeah, you haven't answered yet.
What?
Who
Your
was
favorite?
yours for the...
Oh, my favorite character. I guess if I had to pick one, it would have to be Zuko. With Katara following close behind, but because I really like, and I didn't see. It's interesting that you said she was whiny because I didn't really find her whiny or anything. I felt her more of just sort of impassive, I guess, and it just kind of more like the collar to Sokka's wild craziness. So, but overall, I think Zuko's definitely my favorite. I think it's cliche to say, but I think he has the most depth, I think, of all the characters in the lineup. And again, notwithstanding Iroh, without a doubt, the favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the best.
Yeah, pretty much throughout all seasons. And I also want to talk about now the art style and design of the show. And this is something as much as I love the story of, and I think we can talk about that, a bit later as well, the actual lore and story behind it. I just want to touch briefly upon the actual art and concept art and design of the season series. I love the way this series looks, and I think even now it still holds up. Like I was watching it, and it may look a little grainy, I guess, but the animation. And you can tell where they had like sort of like skimp on some of the animation in the background. It sort of comes off as like a bit kind of bland, but overall the animation is gorgeous. And for as like a first season, debut, that's so impressive. So and I just love the design of like the creatures everything is sort of all the creatures in the show are, you can tell they're based on Earth animals, but they're sort of designed in a fantastical, Asian way. Like they have like those bird. I don't know what they're called. I don't know if they ever gave them a name, but they have like a lot of the characters in the military ride around on like these avian bird chicken creatures, and they
look like giant ostriches.
Like giant ostriches. Yeah, and they have like the armor on it. It looks like something from like Final Fantasy, and it looks really cool. And of course the design of Appa is something straight out of like Studio Ghibli. Like it looks so, really, really cool looking. So I just wanted to, do you guys have the same, I guess appreciation of the artwork? Is there anything that sort of, you don't like about any of the design choices they made? I guess in terms of like the aesthetic, the feel, the world itself.
One thing I think is worth bringing up is that the 4 bending styles are adapted from real life martial arts techniques, and they stay very faithful to having each of them be very separate and distinct.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's true. I love the fact that, and this is not in this season, but later on you'll see it's like the I think it was like when
you're the one who made the rule about this.
I know, but it's the one example that comes to mind right now. But yes, the style of the bending is so fluid, and it looks so like you can see someone doing this in real life. Minus the flames and water coming out of them, but the way that's animated is just gorgeous.
Yeah, their feelings seem to have a real weight to them.
Yeah.
When I watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, I always notice how much movement they have in it compared to a lot of older cartoons. People are always moving. I mean, they obviously have static backgrounds and that kind of thing. But season 1 is probably the weakest, I think. But they're still working out sometimes in the art style, because on some of the scenes, if you look at their eyes, it just looks weird. But the fight scenes are always great, and often when they change things, like I hate the episode, but the Great Divide. In that episode, Aang tells two stories. And I think the art style in those stories are absolutely gorgeous. And I love watching that part.
That's very true.
And it's very fun how it's like, isn't each story is told with a different art style? And
I think that was really creative. Yeah.
And you don't see that a lot in kids
programming.
And that's just, I remember being taken aback because this was probably my 3rd time I've seen the episode. And I was just like, oh, I forgot about this part. That's also an episode I kind of hate too.
And the art style also changes in the spirit world, which I love.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So speaking of movement, like my favorite episode is the one where they go visit the Earth King.
Oh yeah.
And they're
Are you talking about?
You're talking about Omashu
or Ba Sing Se? Ba Sing Se season 2.
Yeah. Oh no. The other one.
King Bumi.
Yeah.
The King of Omashu.
Yeah, be careful, because the Earth King is in Ba Sing Se, and Bumi is of Omashu.
Oh, I thought he was a king.
Oh, he's
the king of Omashu.
Okay.
He's just not the Earth King.
Okay. So, sorry. I have not seen all the episodes in order ever. I was really sad Toph didn't show up because she's my favorite.
Red, you are so chaotic. I can't.
I'm sorry.
You're all over the place, all right? You can't deal with this.
Okay, so
just cut out my entire. My point is that speaking of movement, the parts where they're sliding down the chutes, and the way that's done, I just love that part so much.
My cabbages.
Yes. Oh my god, that poor guy. And then he shows up in another town later.
Yeah. See, okay. You know what? Great segue there. See, like that type of humor. Like I guess that's catered, not to just more of like a kid type humor. But I love the fact that it's something subtle but still really funny. They brought it back, and it's actually one of my favorite episodes actually. The King of Omashu, and I love that it has like the trials at the end, basically for Aang to go through, and he has like sort of like learning, to go through each of these trials, and at the end, he's basically reunited with his old friend, basically. I thought that was a great idea, and again, not like gut punching emotional, but like okay, yeah, it's pretty, pretty somber to think about, honestly.
But
yeah, that
it's
was really.
also so joyful because they like have this moment where they go do this thing they did when they were kids.
Yeah, right.
Cabbages.
Also, representation for 106-year-old buff men.
Yeah, right. I wish, man. I gotta stay in the single thing because
or however old Boomy is, but he's real old. He's over 100 for sure.
Yeah.
He's basically taking Aang to task, basically. So.
Experience over youth.
Yeah.
All right. So what's something that you guys would have if you could have one thing that you would want to see done differently for season 1? And this, I guess, you can frame this in the context that what happens in season 2 and 3. What would you have liked to see them include or do differently in season 1 that may have contributed better to season 2 and 3 overall, or maybe take something out or add something to it?
Well, I would have cut the Great Divide.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
I think season 1. I like season 1 a lot, but I think it lacks a sense of urgency. So yeah. I would cut out a lot of the meandering plots like the Great Divide and
Fortune Teller.
My 2 least favorite episodes. And I like the Northern Arctic Temple. I think it's a great episode, but it still kind of feels like, well, why are we taking so long to get to the North Pole?
Yeah, that was a thing.
Yep.
Bothered me. For sure.
I even feel a little weird about the storm. Like I like the episode.
Oh, I like that episode.
But I don't see why Sokka would randomly become a fisherman. Like just for an episode.
He needed money.
Yeah, they needed money, but they seem fine stealing a whole bunch of other times.
That episode, though, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't that episode that we got a pretty good backstory on?
Oh, yeah, great backstory into Zuko and Aang.
Yeah, so I think that episode is actually kind of vital. Like, I think, I mean, I guess you could have had that.
It's a great episode, but Sokka, it shouldn't have been Sokka is becoming a fisherman and went out into a storm. It should have been they needed to go somewhere in a boat to get to where they needed to go.
Right. Yeah.
Why would they need to have a boat? Because they have Appa. Like Appa's sick or something?
Appa's sick or something.
Yeah, they could have rewritten.
There's plenty of times that Appa didn't feel like flying.
That's true. Like that part where Sokka's sitting on Appa and he's trying to get him to fly and he's saying all these different words.
Yeah.
It's so silly.
Comic relief.
Well, and that's why I say I like Sokka the best, just because I identify with that.
Oh no, Sokka is one of the best characters in this show. The problem is there's so many amazing characters in this show that there's a lot of people who are close, and it's really which one resonates the most with you.
Right, and I'm the person sitting on
Team Sokka.
Well, no, I'm the person sitting on the air buffalo who can't say the right words. As I said, I am very chaotic. It's just like.
Do you think that this show suffers a bit much from, because you do notice there's a difference between how shows are made now currently? Like, for example, in Netflix, there's a show, an animated show, Castlevania, that has literally 4 episodes per season. They're double the length of Avatar. Fair, but do you think that this show suffers from the older method of storytelling, where a full season network TV had to be, from 20? How many episodes is in season 1? It has to be.
Season 1, 20.
Yeah. Do you think that was sort of, if they could have squeezed that into maybe, let's say, 13 to 14 episodes? Do you think that would have been a boon to the show? Because I feel like this show, as much as I enjoyed it, and technically each episode, even maybe not Great Divide, but most of the episodes do offer at least something to contribute to the story, whether it's like backstory or history or lore from the world itself. But I feel like if this show was tightened up, or if it was made for today's modern Netflix style, platform, that means that this show is no way there's going to be 20 episodes per season. This would have probably been like 12, 13, 14. I think that would have actually helped it.
I disagree.
I disagree too,
I've complained about a few of the episodes, mostly because of their plots or some of the decisions, namely The Great Divide. But I mostly don't like The Great Divide because, first of all, it doesn't add anything, and second of all, I think it's out of character for Aang. But one thing I do think that is good in The Great Divide is the quarreling between Katara and Sokka, and it felt really true to the characters. And I think this show, Kip said earlier, this show is really popular because the characters are so good. And I think if you cut out even the fortune teller, which is I don't really care for, you lose
cut it
a
out.
lot. You still
I
would
would.
lose a lot of character. And I watch the show for the character.
Yeah, definitely. But so what I'm saying is they keep the character focused, stories and dialogue and everything. But if they were to remove a lot of the sort of scenes and things that don't really contribute to the story itself, tighten it up, make sure it's more streamlined, and it would lend itself to that sense of urgency that you're talking about, where because it does meander a lot, it could tighten it up to be, if you condense everything from the stories and humor that sort of detracts from the actual main story, and that sense of something big is happening. We have to get to it now, and there's this greater sense of momentum building, rather than having 20 full episodes, that sort of meander back and forth a bit between, rather something really important is happening and then it slows down to, let's just take our time and
if I can,
so good.
I think that what you're saying is that if Nickelodeon first said, okay, we need 20 episodes, and this is roughly the shape of what the season is going to look like, and then they went and they subcontracted out those 20 episodes to different writers, different artists, and some of them, they were like, we don't care if yours is relevant to the plot, we just need it to fill space.
Yep.
And I think that rather than doing starting the series from the perspective of, okay, we need to tell these stories, how many episodes do we need to do it in? I think the former approach really does lend itself to more spottiness and weaker episodes in general than a more modern Netflix or even Game of Thrones style approach, where they're like, okay, we want to tell this. Game of Thrones even also had the freedom to change the amount of time that each episode was pretty dramatically. And I think that if given those freedoms, I think Avatar maybe would have been better than it was already.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that, and then again, I bring this up because I'm not faulting Avatar for that. That's how network, especially, you can't blame them. If they come to the studio with a idea like this, they're not going to have free reign, especially on a new concept.
Nickelodeon says we want 20 episodes. We want 20 episodes.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have that. They don't have that clout. I think later on in season 3, I think by the time you can tell they wrote it for a more structured pattern. I think by the time they got season 3, but right up front, they're not gonna. They don't have that freedom to say, slap there's a script down on the table and say, here, deal with it. 12 episodes.
Yep.
So,
Season 3 was 21. They got an extra N.
Oh, great. So
But it's
and that's
still a
what
lot tighter and a lot better told.
It's still a lot
it
tighter.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt more with purpose, I think.
I mean, it has a 4-episode finale.
Yeah. Oh, so good. I can't wait to get to talk about that. The last thing I want to talk about was just the lore and setting of the story itself. I think this is probably Avatar's greatest boon. Basically, is I think the acting is good. I think the voice acting can be a bit. I'll say this: the voice acting in this show is good, but sometimes I notice that I guess seeing everything in this very like Asian centric style, but then having like these very like white, American or English accents to people is a bit. It comes off as a bit weird for some of them, but then you have like Ira, who does sound like more like an Asian centric person. It's kind of flip flop back and forth is a bit odd, but so the voice acting is good, but I think the biggest strength I think the show has is just the story and the lore behind it. So I just wanted to get your guys' opinions on what sort of did the story itself draw you in? Was it something that you felt the need to sort of go in and find out more and more as you watched? Because for myself personally, when I was watching this, I found myself going on the wiki page actually and like looking up characters and looking the background, like the history and everything. Even because they sort of have a way of feeding it to you kind of drip style where they'll give you a bit of the story and history and then they'll give you a little bit more. But I found it so intriguing that I kind of went ahead and sort of read up on the lore and the history of the nations and everything even as I was watching.
Yes, absolutely. I think the world building or the world itself is one of the greatest strengths the show has, and that's a big reason why I watch it.
Any show that can
unique.
sustain a big wiki.
Yeah, any kid show on Nickelodeon that needs a wiki to explain what's going on.
I'm sorry, Hurin. I'm sorry.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
You're such a jerk, Kip.
Oh, look, I come from an Italian family. If I don't interject myself into the conversation, I don't get it.
Anyway, Hurin.
Sorry.
You were saying. Hurin?
Oh yeah, I remember now. And it's nice to see an American show that's based on like Asian mythology or even anything Eastern Asian, because I thought that was really cool and not seen a lot, especially in America.
Yeah, we don't have a big we don't have a lot of shows that aren't done for like they don't have a lot of like Asian characters that aren't. It's like the focus of them is being Asian. Like this just takes place in an Asian themed show. If that makes any sense. Like the idea of it isn't. Yeah, it's from Asia. It's just it feels like it's very natural. Like the setting is Asian aesthetic.
Yeah, it's very Pan-Asian too.
Yeah.
It is very Pan-Asian.
I 100% when I first saw the show thought it was made in Japan.
Oh.
Because
a lot of people make that mistake.
Yeah, and I found out later it wasn't, but I was like, oh, this is so. Going back to the voice acting part, so the accent thing doesn't pull me out of it, and the reason why is because the Fire Nation has that more Asiatic sounding accent, whereas our characters sound like our characters, the characters that we're supposed to identify with sound like American. So
it's very interesting that the bad guys are actually traditionally Asian, but everyone else is like the good guys, like the white.
I mean, specifically the bad guys are Japanese.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it has a very World War II flavor to it.
I never noticed that.
That's a very interesting point. I did not think of that.
Dante Basco's heritage is Filipino, though. But Iroh is definitely Japanese American, and a few other of the Fire Nation actors were. I think George Takei was also an actor in the Fire Nation.
He was, yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, wait, what character was he?
Just a random. He wasn't the big character.
Oh, wow, that's funny.
He was in one episode.
Yeah, he was in like one episode, but he was fun.
It would have been great if he was like this.
There's a bunch of really good actors, voice actors that have been in Avatar that I'm like, wait, is that so and so? And I look it up and I'm like, yeah, oh my god,
There
Oh,
were
I
quite a
that
few
stuff.
voices where I did recognize. I'm not great with VO, the people in the VO industry. So I don't know them by name, but there were a few characters in here that I did feel like, oh man, it sounds so familiar.
So do you guys think I'm
Ah,
wrong that it has a World War II vibe? Because that's what I've always watched it as.
No, it definitely does.
yeah. I mean, I think it's unavoidable.
I think it was on purpose. Because I mean, if you guys know your history,
It,
especially Japanese history,
if
then it's
if you're
exactly
going
how it
to
happens.
have unintentional allegories to World War II, you might as well just make them intentional. It works better that way.
And have magic.
Well,
Yes.
Kip, you brought up the point of it being sort of relatable to Deep Space Nine, and that at least the beginning of it was a very allegorical to the Jewish Nazi
Yeah.
imprisonment camp.
That was allegorical to a post World War II.
True.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite funny. Okay, so just to wrap things up here, I think we're gonna hit an hour up here, but just so to go around the room, if you guys could be a bender of any of the elements, what would you be?
Air. I want to fly.
I'm so torn. I would say air, but I'm gonna say water because I would like to heal.
Oh, that's so sweet, Kat.
Sounds like LRB. You always play the healer.
Yeah, I'm also a healer on our Habatica, aren't I? So I would like to be a healer, but I actually really want to fly. That's what I want to do.
To be honest, the water, they have like the biggest like side benefit with the healing thing. Like everyone else doesn't, like they don't.
Well,
No,
there are side benefits to the other things, kind of. We can't get into them yet because they don't happen in these seasons, but there are other side benefits.
Or
And not
necessarily
every
in the
waterbender
series.
is a healer.
Yeah,
No,
that's true.
that's
That's true.
true.
Yeah,
And that's like one of the things that come up in the episodes in the North Pole is that she's like, "Why do I have to be a healer? I want to fight."
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So,
All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining me to discuss season 1 of Avatar. I think it was a really great discussion, actually. I really want to get into season 2 and 3, where the show kind of, for me, it's sort of then is now firing on all cylinders. So thanks, guys. This is Legendary Green Team. This is HurinFan, Fake, and LRB joining us. You can get us on Patreon. If you want to, throw us $2. Really, not no problem. You can get us on Reddit and Discord. Continue discussion. Thanks a lot for joining, everyone.
have a good
See you.
night.
Bye.
Bye.
Recording there.
If I have some suggestions, though, I recommend editing out the Korra conversation.
Oh yeah, probably.